What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. My name is Gregson and welcome to Shifting Lanes. Today I am in a very cool little hatchback. This is the brand new 2019 Toyota Corolla Hatch XSE. And Toyota has graciously given me this for a week, so I thought I would take you guys for a drive and tell you about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's hop in, let's go over some specifications, and then let's go for a ride. Okay, before we set off, I'm sitting here in the Corolla hatchback. I have a few things I want to go over with you, courtesy of these laminated Toyota pieces of paper. The performance of this car, first off, let's start with that. This has a 2.4 liter four-cylinder with a dynamic shift CVT. It produces 168 horsepower at 6,600 RPM and 151 pound-feet of torque at 4,800 RPM. We have a wheelbase of 103.9 inches, height is 57.1 inches, and you have a curb weight of just over 3,000 pounds at 3,060 pounds. The EPA is still out on this one. I believe it has... This is actually a pre-production car they gave me. This is their loaner that they gave me. So these don't have all of the information on it, but if you go online, you can find the EPA MPG information. I can tell you that I've been getting from this tank of gas that they gave me 28.3 MPG, and that's in probably about 70-30 city to highway. So on the highway, I was getting well over 35 miles per gallon. So this thing is definitely very fuel efficient. So the engine, as I said, is a 2-liter engine, and it is what they call a dynamic force 4-cylinder dual overhead cam, 16-valve D4S dual injection with dual VVTi. That is a very long amount of letters and words. Essentially what that means is this is a 2-liter engine, has 168 horsepower, 151 pounds-feet of torque, and yeah, it gets up and goes pretty well, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The wheels, they are 18-inch machined alloy wheels with 225 40R18 tires on it, and for a little Corolla, those are some pretty serious wheel numbers. 225 is only 10 millimeters smaller width-wise than my Subaru WRX, and that is a much faster and much more sporty car than this one. So with this particular line and this particular model, you're getting very good tire width and wheel size. This car has bi-LED combination headlights with auto on-off feature and adaptive front lighting system, LED daytime running lamps, LED fog lights, LED combination tail lights, basically LED everywhere. Interior is dual zone auto air conditioning, integrated backup camera with projected path, 7-inch TFT multi-information display, leather trimmed heated front seats with 8-way power adjustable driver's seat and a manual passenger seat, though I don't think you can get the passenger seat with a automatic seat. 60/40 split fold rear seats, and yeah, a various suite of safety features, including Toyota Safety Sense, or TSS. So, and that's the pre-collision system, automatic cruise control, or not automatic cruise control, but radar guided cruise control and the like. So as you can see, this car is pretty nice inside. So let's get on the road and let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, and we'll start with the interior. Before we talk about the interior, let's get one thing straight. The Toyota Corollas of the past have always felt a little cheap. So have Honda Civics, so have a lot of cars in this bracket. So let's level set with that. As we know that, you know, these small cars are cheaper cars. They're supposed to be more affordable. They make them with, you know, cheaper parts than, you know, you'd say a Bentley. So these are meant to be affordable, and they've never had really great aesthetics and great soft touch materials. I think this car changes that. The interior of this car, this Corolla specifically, is extremely nice. You have this really cool kind of grayish white interior color on the seats. You have a black dashboard. You have a very nice color matching headliner, and everything seems to fit together very nicely. The color of this car, the interior, is something that really kind of caught my eye, and a couple of other people's eyes as I've shown this car around to some friends. They all really like it, and I do too. I think this is a very nice place to be. The seats themselves are very supportive. They're bolstered nicely. They hug you in the turns, but they're not overly bolstered to be very uncomfortable. So overall, the seats in here are excellent. The color is excellent. I really like it. The center console is laid out really well. You have a ton of buttons at the bottom along with your big screen, which is touchscreen, and you have buttons along the side of it. It seems to be a nice mix of button versus touchscreen. The driving display in front of you is also very nice. You have a digital center where you can scroll through different options, and then you also have your tack and your speedo, which is in the middle. The digital speedo in the middle. It's just really nicely laid out. I think that's the first good of this car. You get in and it doesn't feel like Corollas of the past. It doesn't feel like small cars of the past. It feels more upscale than you would generally think, with this nice contrast stitching and just everything about how this car is laid out. Second good thing about this car is how it looks on the outside. I literally just had a Toyota Corolla pass me, the last generation, and I couldn't help but think, wow, this one looks so much better than the last version. It looks a little bit more sporty. The grille is updated. You have a lot of the Lexus front-end features and influence coming through in some of the Toyota products now in the Camry, this Corolla, the new RAV4. So I think that's a really nice evolution of how this car has looked, and I think that this is so much better looking than the last one. So that is definitely the second good of this car, is you're gonna walk out and you're gonna look at it and you're gonna smile. Third good thing along those same lines is the blue. I love like freaky weird colors on cars that aren't overly done. A big bright yellow am not a huge fan of. Sometimes bright reds I'm not a huge fan of. This is a bright blue. It almost looks like a Ford Grabber blue, or a Polestar blue from Volvo. It's in that same blue family, and it has a really funny name to it. This is Blue Flame. Sounds like something out of Zoolander, which I think is just great. I love that. So yeah, the blue is really cool in this car. I think that's the third good thing. It's gonna be something that if you get it in this color, you walk out and you go, I mean, at least I did the last week. I walked out and I just kind of smiled. It's just a funky little color and a funky little car, so I'm a huge fan of that. Fourth good thing about this car is I am literally shocked at how good the ride quality is. Again, you have to compare these cars for being small little cars, and usually it's not necessarily cheaper mechanical parts, but it's more basic parts. You get a basic coil and a strut, and that's it. There's no fancy air suspension or any of that. The ride is very good, and to that same point, this thing is hugely fun to drive. It's a front-wheel drive car. It does not have all-wheel drive, but man, throwing it around the bends, I was shocked at how fun this thing is. You have to kind of directly compare this thing to the Honda Civic because it's about the same size. It's now a hatchback. The Civics are all hatchbacks now. The way the Civic drives and goes around corners, that chassis specifically is very world-beating. It's part of the reason why the Civic Type R is so good, is because it has such a good chassis. This chassis, I feel, is just as good. Of course, this doesn't have as good as handling in the tire department. There is a bit of understeer. Yeah, I'm really surprised at how well this thing drives around corners. You just throw it around a corner and it just takes it. It's so good. Oh man, this thing is fun to drive. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. You can probably see the grin on my face, because it's a little blast of a car, and you can't compare this to other sports cars. But if you take it for what it is, it's just such a great little handling car. If you get this thing, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Fifth and final good thing, it's a hatch. We finally get the Toyota hatchback. Europe has had this car or some version of this car, the Igo, smaller or larger, whatever. They've had a Toyota hatchback in Europe for a long time, and now we finally get it in the US, and I'm so glad, because I think it's a really cool, fun, and more utilitarian little car. So yeah, I really am really liking the wagon and hatchback renaissance that's happening in the US right now. I think there's more of those cars coming out, and I think that's great. Toyota bringing this car out in the US is a huge win. I like this thing much better than the sedan, and hopefully they'll make a little hot hatch version that's aimed at you guys, Toyota. You guys got to do that. This thing with 250 to 300 horsepower all-wheel drive, oh yeah, now we're talking. I would probably buy one. All right, let's talk about the bad of this car. There's not a ton of it, but there are a few things that need, addressing. The car feels more upscale. There are still a few things that do feel cheap in here. These stalks, I don't know if you can hear that. I'll get a up-close shot of it right now. So specifically, the left turn signal stalk, when you flick it, there's a huge vibration coming out of the center part of the dash, or the center part of the wheel housing here. It just makes a brrr, like a buzzing sound. It sounds cheap. It feels cheap. It's not great. Again, that's fine. This car specifically feels a lot more upscale than it used to, but it's still cheap is, I guess, the wrong word, an inexpensive, affordable car. So there are a couple of things that don't feel perfect in this car. It also, maybe a little, asterisk to that. This, in the dash, or in the glove box, I saw this was their pre-production car. So this might not be totally refined and totally fine-tuned. That being said, there are a couple other places where it feels a little cheap. There's a piece of leather down in here, with the, I guess, where the wheel meets the dash, and my WRX is the same thing. It's just a little flap of basically fabric. The piece of pleather or whatever this is, it just looks sort of cheap and put in there, haphazardly. So that's not great. There are a couple things around the car that are a little strange too. The rear view mirrors actually don't work, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. Could be an electronic gremlin. Maybe there's an electronic gremlin in this pre-production model. Maybe this isn't I don't even know, honestly. But that's something that might crop up, is some electronic gremlins, because this is a new car. First generation or first round of new cars usually have a little bit more problems than maybe your facelifted cars or your second generation of the same model. So something to watch out for. Maybe some electronic gremlins might crop up. Third bad thing in this car is the infotainment system. Toyota has tried to update their infotainment system a bunch of times. They have a thing called Grace Note. It incorporates all of the music into the car and whatnot. If you connect the phone via Bluetooth or anything like that, it doesn't really do a great job of it. I'm not overly happy with a lot of car infotainment systems. Volvo seems to do it pretty well, but there's not a ton others that are really that great out there. One other bad for this car also goes along the lines of the color of these seats and the color of this car. It's going to be very difficult to keep clean. This car only has, let's take a look right now, 6,363 miles on it. 63. This car, there's a couple spots on these seats that are absolutely filthy already. So I would get this car and I would take care of the seats and clean them often. Most people getting this car, this is a commuter car. You're not going to keep these seats clean per se, especially if you do something like Uber. So yeah, I think that if you're going to buy this car and you're going to do a lot of driving and you're not a huge car enthusiast like I am, get the black interior, because it's going to show way less dirt. You're going to have to clean it way less often, and it won't be mismatching colors on the seats and sort of the dash too. So a good for me is the color, but also a bad because of, keeping it clean is going to be very difficult. Another bad, I'll put the hammer down, is the acceleration. It's not very fast. 0 to 60, I don't think the time is out for this car yet. I will look it up and put it below me if it is, but it doesn't feel fast. It feels like it's in the 6.8 to 7.8 range. It's not a quick car. It is relatively light, 3,000 pounds. Even for a car this size, is still a little heavy. It should be under 3,000 pounds in my opinion, maybe 100-pound weight loss somewhere. But maybe that's where they've, kind of elevated the, status of this car is more weight, more safety, and better materials. But it's not quick. So yeah, you're not going to be winning any races with this thing. 168 horsepower is not a ton of horsepower. Same with the torque. It's not turboed. It's not a huge not a huge engine. It doesn't really kind of get up and go the way a lot of these other smaller turbo cars do. It's not quick. It's very fun in the bends. Like I said, it's very fun in the twisties, and you'll have a good time doing that. But it's not a very fast car. And finally, onto the ugly. And I think this is the first car that I have reviewed that doesn't have an ugly to it. I don't think there's anything ugly about this car. It's not the greatest car in the world, but it's not the worst car in the world, and I think there's way more good in here than there is bad. I don't really think that there is an ugly to it. It looks great. It handles great. It's not overly quick, but it'll get going. As long as you plan out, if you're in a highway situation, as long as you plan out what you're gonna do, you'll be fine. And there's plenty of space back here. That's a hatch, so you get a nice little, a good amount of trunk space. There's room in the back seat for actual people. There's tons of room in the front seat. I mean, I'm only 5'6", and there's so much room around me, and there's tons of headroom. There's not really a lot to not like in here. So, yeah, I think this is the first car I've ever reviewed that has no ugly about it. So, congratulations, Toyota Corolla, the first one that has no questions at the end or anything that's just glaring that really needs to be fixed or changed immediately. So, yeah, great job, Toyota. So to summarize this video all up, I have driven the base Civic. I've driven a Civic that's on comparable, footing to this as far as options are concerned, as far as handling is concerned. Basically the same car, just essentially a Honda Civic. I think this car is every bit as good as the Civic. It might be a little slower in the engine department and in the acceleration department, but I don't really see a huge discrepancy between these two. Usually, the Honda Civic is always regarded as the best small car you can buy. I think this is right up there with it, to be honest with you. I think that the Honda Civic is a great car. I think this is also a great car. So, if you're shopping around for Civics or small cars, if you don't look at this, I think you're doing yourself a great disservice. That being said, I think that, if I was in the market for a car, I'm not sure which one I would buy. I would really have to see who gave me the better deal at that point, because I think it would really come down to price. I think these cars are equivalently fun, the Civic and the Corolla, and yeah, if you're shopping around for one, like I said, go check it out. And if you can get a great deal on a Corolla, buy it, because I don't think you're going to have a bad time. That'll do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to follow us on social media, it is @ShiftingLanes on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you have a social media platform. Go and follow us. We do not only these reviews, but we write about the daily news and any kind of automotive chatter at shiftinglanes.com, as well as Drive Tribe. Search Shifting Lanes. You can also get in contact with us. It's contact@shiftinglanes is our email address. And we respond to every one of your emails and every business inquiry. So if you want to get in contact, just check that out. The email should be right here below me. If you want to check out more of our videos, you can click right here. If you want to see all of our press reviews of all of the cars that we've actually driven and done a good, bad, ugly review on, click right here. And if you want to subscribe, click right here. My name is Gregson, and thank you for watching this review of the 2019 Toyota Corolla, and I will catch you next time. See ya.